Hey guys, this is Blue Forest. So today let's go through some of this vicious Mockery arena. I did do the first several rounds, and now that we're at the 3x multiplier, I figured we should record some. We'll do about 10 rounds, at least until I run out of rank 5 and 6 bots, and we'll see if we can get a few of those Slipstream teams. I have not gotten any so far today, and over the last few days, I have not gotten many. Unfortunately, those Slipstream teams where you get the shards for the Slipstream crystals, those seem to be pretty rare, but we'll see if we can get a few. I would definitely take this arena more seriously if Slipstream had a really good launch, but she didn't have a very good launch. He is definitely bugged. She's got a lot of problems, so I'm not even actually doing this arena for those shards. I'm really just doing it to pick up additional arena crystals, which I would recommend. I do think this is a good week to grind the arenas at least a bit, because we almost certainly have Fog of War coming next week. So very likely next Thursday at the conclusion of this current time slide and Slipstream event. It'll probably run the 23rd to the 30th. So you want to have as many of those arena crystals as you can, because if you can open up a lot of them, you'll get a nice little chunk of energon. Generally, a good rule of thumb with arena crystals is with energon, you'll probably get a 1-to-1 ratio. So that means that if you open up 100 arena crystals, you'll probably end up with about 100 energon. You can definitely get more. Sometimes it'll be less, but that's a pretty good rule of thumb. So I've got quite a few arena crystals right now, so I'm just going to kind of at least do all the milestones every day just to get more of them. That will be very useful when Fog comes, and at the same time, you should be mindful that the crystal opening event will almost certainly happen next week as well. It almost always happens with Fog of War, so save your crystals. I would not recommend opening them right now, because the crystal opening event is actually pretty good. It's one of the few Alliance events that gives you good rewards even for milestones. You don't even have to rank super high to get some pretty good rewards. So I would definitely recommend saving those crystals as well and then opening them all during the week of Fog. So anyway, with arenas, I am not really a big fan of arenas. I find them very boring. I play them very recklessly. I don't care if I take damage. I don't care if I get beat up a little bit, as long as you win the fight. Because arenas are, really easy. They're very repetitive, and you have to grind a lot in order to rank highly, at least in a lot of these arenas. And so I just kind of try to rush through them, and as long as I stay alive, I don't really care what happens otherwise. So anyway, that's kind of my approach to arenas. I would love to see them make a few new arenas. I mean, they have made a couple of changes which are good. I mean, the best change they made was adding T4C to the T3 class arena. We had been asking for that for a very long time. They finally did it, and you can get something like 1400 T4C essence just from milestones, which is pretty good. They did do that, but most of the other arenas are still exactly the same. They still do that thing where they run Overlord's Favor 7 days in a row, which really sucks because it's a pretty worthless arena. So I'd like to see them add a few new arenas. And also I'd like to see them change the reward structure a little bit, at least for the top few ranks, because a lot of the rewards in arenas just are not very good, and the few arenas that do have good rewards, you have to grind a ridiculous amount, So the SIG arena, which is definitely the most popular arena because you get those 5-star SIGs, well, you're only going to get 5-star SIGs if you rank top 30, and you've got to get, 8-9 million points. You've got to play basically nonstop, and you have to have a massive roster. I mean, it's not about your ability at all. It's just about how many ranked up bots you have. You got to play every 6 hours, ask for help with perfect timing. I mean, I don't know how some people have time to do that. Like, if I did that, I wouldn't get any work done. So anyway, I'd love to see them make changes to arenas, because the thing about arenas is they are actually really good for practice when you're a newer player. They're one of the few things I would recommend new players spend a lot of time doing, because it's a good way to kind of teach yourself about the AI, and if you lose an arena fight, it's not a big deal. But once you become an even decent player, they're all just easy and kind of boring. And so most people do like I do, they just kind of rush through them without really caring about, playing super well, or they do it on autoplay, and I don't do autoplay usually because it's often actually slower because the AI isn't that intelligent. And sometimes if you have your bot on autoplay, it'll lose, even if it's like not a difficult fight at all. So anyway, I usually just do it, and I just do it as quickly as I can. So anyway, those are my general thoughts on the arenas. And on top of that, besides Fog, it is very likely that Rodimus is going to come shortly after that. My general advice for Kabam with him is, number one, do not release him for $100. Oh, look at this. We have the Vicious Mockery team. Okay, we've gotten the first one. All right, so that's a nice start. But anyway, I would recommend that they do not release Rodimus for money right away. I would wait at least a week because they've had so many screwed up bot launches lately that people are not going to feel confident about spending money for him or even Energon for him if he's got tons of problems. I think they should also offer Rodimus in beta, or at least future bots in beta, so by all means give it to Night Skies, no problem, but it'd be nice if they let other players test him, maybe get a sample size, get some feedback, see if there are any issues to be worked out before you even think about charging money for him. Because I was all about buying Slipstream. I was totally going to do it, but then immediately there were all these bad reviews, and I just thought there's no way I can, so, and I didn't get a friend or John either for that reason. It's just ridiculous. You have to test these bots out. You have to make sure they're ready for prime time, especially if you want players to spend money. And by all means, they should want players to spend money. It's an important part of business, but they've got to do their part, So hopefully, Rodimus does not come in broken form. And by the way, these Slipstream teams, they're only giving 40 of the elite shards. So, okay, it's nice that they're the elite shards, but 40 is 1/50th of an elite crystal. So you'd have to get a ton of those Slipstream teams in order to get a single crystal. So that's another reason why I would not count on these arenas if you really want to get Slipstream or any of the new bots. If you really want to have a better chance of getting Slipstream, the best thing to do is finish the time slides, finish the showcases, make sure you do all the achievements from the calendar, from the Vicious Mockery calendar, because that'll give you, a pretty good chunk of those elite shards. The arenas are not going to help much, a little bit, but not too much. You are getting some shards from milestones and rank, and that's helpful, but it's, again, arenas are a lot of grinding, so I would not rely on these arenas in order to give you a significantly increased chance to get Slipstream. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, Rodimus will very likely be coming in the next few weeks. I would also, by the way, like to see them shorten these sort of events that they're doing. I think 5 weeks for Slipstream, for Ironhide, for Skyward. I think that's too long. 4 weeks max. Honestly, I would say 3 weeks would be best, because you could then have a 2-week time slide where the new bot is the boss immediately, and then have, 1 week of an arena. It doesn't need to be 5 weeks. It's over a month, and then you end up having these 3-week time slides like we're in right now, and those are just too long. You don't need that. So right now, it's kind of like one of those lull weeks in the game where there's not much going on. Most people have already completed the time slides. There's not really much to do, so I'd like to see them shorten these events. I understand they want to showcase the new bots and have the attention of the game be on the new bot, but it doesn't need to be for 5 weeks. That just seems kind of silly, especially since there's basically no other new content. And I mean, by the way, where is the new AM map, right? So they wrote about this in their roadmap that they gave us in February, and they did say that it would come this year. Okay, well, we're at the midpoint of the year now. There's still no new AM map, but it's like, okay, where is it? We've had this map for more than 2 years. I wasn't even playing the game when the current AM map came out. I hadn't even started playing the game yet. So a lot of players are really frustrated with the current map. It does feel very stale. It feels really repetitive at this point. They really got to get on that. I think in terms of content, which is super important, the AM map is by far the most important thing because this is a very AMs focused game. And people are just really sick of it. It's just been going on for so long. And, they said they want to make the map shorter so that they can change it more often. And that's good. But again, okay, well, if you want to be able to change the new map more often, what does that mean? Because we've had this map for over 2 years. So does it mean once a year? Does it mean once every 6 months? Does it mean once every 2 years like normal? I mean, I hope that they give us some clarification, but I think that'll be a huge boost when they do release the new AM map. But I also hope that they release new mods and kind of change them up as well, because the mods from AMs, from time slides, are extremely repetitive. And I'm worried that they're going to, they'll switch out the bots and all of that, which will be fun. But if it's just, a bunch of evade mods and resistance mods and power flow mods and armor mods and all of that, if it's just the same thing with different bots on the mods, that's not going to feel fresh for that long, So hopefully, they have come out with a couple of new mods in the last several months in the time slides, not many, but a couple, and that's interesting at least. So hopefully they will do something like that, where they have some genuinely new mods that are challenging and interesting and just different from what we've had. And then I'd love to see them make some real changes to AMs in general. I know that there have been some people who have asked for the number of players in teams to be reduced from 18 to something like 15, because recruiting is really difficult, especially from mid and higher level teams. It's so difficult to keep a full roster of players. Players get sick of it. They want to take a break. They get busy. They get bored. They get tired. They, whatever. Okay, we've gotten another Slipstream team here. But anyway, with AMs, there's a million reasons why people are not going to stay with the team. And one of those reasons, though, has to do with the fact that one really good idea I have heard from people is to allow each BG to do its own difficulty. If they could make that work, I think that would be great, because one of the reasons why it's hard to keep 18 people together is because you're going to have different skill sets, right? You're going to have really solid veterans in a team, and then you might have newer players that are trying to get better that need time. If you were able to allow each BG to do a different difficulty, it would just make it so much easier to keep everybody together, because in the current form, right, if you're stuck at a certain level, the best players are going to want to move on to other teams, or the weaker players are going to feel like they have to leave because they can't keep up with everybody else. That would be a really good idea. I think also one really good idea is to not restrict the number of people in each BG, right? So you keep the 3 BG model, but there's no reason for it to be 6 per BG, because the goal of AMs is to get through the entire map together as a team. It shouldn't matter. So if you have, 4 people in one BG and 8 in the other one, it shouldn't matter. And I think that would also help to keep teams together as well, because I know a lot of leaders of teams, and the thing that they hate the most is just the endless recruiting. It just never ends. It's really annoying. It's bothersome. It's frustrating. So doing things to kind of alleviate that pressure to feel like you always need to be at 18 or at least 17 people, I think would be helpful. And then I think they also need to put some work into the rank rewards, especially for the mid to high level teams that are not top 10, right? Because the top 10 teams get fantastic rewards. I played with the top 10 team for a while. They're great, but once you get to rank 11 and below, the rewards are significantly less useful, which is a shame. And, I think certainly for the top 100 teams, but definitely for the top 50 teams, they should make the rewards a little better than they are, at least, because, less than 1% of the player base is doing D90 plus. It's a tiny fraction. So yes, the top 10 teams should get the best rewards, but the top 25, the top 50 should also get really good rewards, and they don't really. They're not very good. And So I'd like to see them incentivize players and incentivize teams to increase competition, to want to go up in difficulty. A lot of teams just kind of stick at one difficulty for very long periods of time because getting up to the next rank, to the next tier is just too difficult, and I think adding new tiers of ranks would be good too, because right now they're too broad, right? 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 75 to 125. Those are very broad, so if you had, I would do groups of 10 or 15, right? So maybe it could be rank 11 to 25, 25 to 40, 41 to 55, like that would make it more competitive and fun. That would be way more fun and way more interesting. So anyway, I've got tons of ideas for AMs. I'm assuming they probably won't make any of these changes except give us the new map, but we'll see. We just have to see what happens. But I think if they were to put real work into AMs in general beyond just a new map, that could really breathe some new life into the game, and just new content in general. Do more things with these time slides, do some more special events. They tried those gauntlets a couple times. The first one was great, the second one was a letdown. Doesn't matter, even if it doesn't work, that's fine, but just give us new things to do. So I'm very happy that they've released 4 or 5 bots in recent months. That's way more than we had couple years previous, but there's still so much work that Kabam could do to improve things and also, by the way, increase revenue. And so we just have to see kind of what happens through the rest of the year. So I've been cautiously optimistic. At the same time, though, Kabam is not a transparent company. They don't exactly communicate very well, so I also have my doubts. But I would love to see them make genuine, real changes in the coming months to content, as well as these new bots. Because new bots alone is not going to cut it, especially when they keep screwing up these new bot releases. And I think the final thing that they just absolutely have to address are all the tech issues in the game, which are just endless. There's so many of them. And of course, the number one offender is air punching. It's just a massive problem. I just did it right there with Wheeljack. It's just air punching. You could actually call it air dashing, where your opponent just kind of dashes halfway and then stops, almost like it's tripping over itself. It happens constantly. It's ridiculous. And you just have to sort of learn to live with it and kind of try to adapt to it and get the hell out of the way when it happens and whatever. But I was doing D90 to 100 in AMs for a long time. I'm taking a break from it now, partly because of air punching. Because, at those high levels, a couple of melees or a couple of basic range shots can kill you easily. And, I just got sick of being countered from air punching, and I would say to this day, I'm not the greatest player in this game, but it's honestly probably 50% of the damage I take is because of being countered after air punching. It's just such a massive problem, and it's hardly the only problem, right? So you have projectiles going through opponents, you have opponents blocking specials at the end of combos, you have the kind of the walkie-talkie effect, whereby you'll fire off a few shots, and then when the opponent fires off a few shots in response, you literally can't move. You'll have the sort of frozen bot issue, where sometimes your bots will just go limp and won't respond to controls for 2 or 3 seconds. There's just so many of these things, and to this day, Kabam has never even acknowledged that these issues exist, which is amazing to me. I work in marketing and corporate marketing. It's amazing that a business like this could just pretend like all of this stuff doesn't exist, as if it's going to make it go away, which it doesn't. And I know people who have left the game because of stuff like this. I just whiffed with Motormaster right there a couple times. It's just, in easy fights like this, I don't care. I don't care at all if I'm taking damage in arenas, but that's not the point. It's so irritating, it's so frustrating, it's boring. And I'm sick of it. That was another whiff. It's just lots and lots of whiffing, not making contact. Timing is important, but when it happens in every fight, it's just ridiculous. So if they were to even moderately fix a few of these tech issues, that would take this game into God mode. I love this game, but sometimes it's hard for me to recommend it to people because there's just so much wrong with it as well. It's a tricky one. I'm a lifelong Transformers fan. That's a big part of the reason why I play. And this is the only game I play seriously, by the way. If I played games all day, I wouldn't, be able to work. But, it's just, I don't know. I think this game still has massive potential. And I think they could keep this game going for years. But there's so much they need to do in terms of their customer service, in terms of their marketing, in terms of their deals. I mean, most of the deals in the store are just ridiculously expensive and not worth it. In terms of their launches with bots, with new game modes, in terms of, delivering on promises, things like that. There's just so many pretty simple things that I still think they should do. And if they did do even some of them, the game would be significantly better, and it would bring in new players, and more players would be willing to spend money, myself included. So, anyway, those are just some of my random rants about the game. Hope you enjoy this commentary, because I don't really enjoy doing arenas very much, because I find them pretty dull. So, being able to talk to you guys is just a little bit more fun than just sitting here mindlessly grinding the arenas. And so, anyway, bottom line though, I am more optimistic about the game than I was, say, 6 months ago. They clearly have invested some resources into it, so I'd like to see them keep it going. And I'd like to see them make genuine improvements, So the next test, of course, will be, okay, release Fog of War, right? Don't delay it or not release it for some stupid reason. And then make sure that the Rodimus release is a good release. If they do just those two things to start, that's a small step in the right direction. That's kind of my thought on it. I'm not expecting them to change everything overnight, but doing something to generate a little bit of forward momentum and be responsive to players would be great. And by the way, I think one fantastic thing that they could do was just have the devs show up a little bit. They used to show up occasionally, but now you never see them on Discord basically ever. And they could do an office hours thing, twice a month for an hour on a Friday. They could take questions from players. They could address concerns. You do that once or twice a month, like that would be just very common sense marketing and inspire trust and confidence, just to be able to interact with them, to address our concerns, to get a sense of what the players actually most want and need, because I don't think they have any idea. So doing something like that would be fantastic. They can't just rely on Pinwheel, who's clearly he's a community manager. He's a customer service guy. They can't rely on him to do everything. So if they were to get the devs involved a little bit, I think that would be helpful. Like I said, giving new bots to people like Skies, and some other players having, sort of beta launches would be really, really cool. And of course, at least addressing the tech issues, acknowledging they exist, would also go a long way, in addition to putting out some genuinely new content. So those are kind of my general recommendations for Kabam. I mean, I would gladly give them an hour of my time if they wanted to talk to me. I could give them some very sound advice, but I don't think they want to talk to most of us, and that's a problem. So anyway, okay, so we are at 15 rounds. We've done 10 rounds. I think we've had, 2 of the Slipstream teams. I've got, 4 rank 5 and 6 bots left. So we'll just do 2 and 2, just to make sure that I don't get any more of those Optimus teams. Because, by the way, guys, once I get to the 6th round, between round 6 and 14, you start getting those Optimus teams if you're doing all rank 5 or all rank 6 bots. And I hate those teams because you get far fewer points. Arenas are not difficult anyway, so I usually will do 2 rank 5s and then like an unranked 3 or 4 star, just to ensure that I keep getting rank 5 and 6 opponents, because then you just get a lot more points, and I hate those Optimus teams because it just makes it go more slowly. It's just really annoying. So anyway, that's my general strategy with arenas. I'll do, rank 2 through 4 up to the 3x multiplier, and then I'll just gradually make my way through all of my rank 4 through 6 bots after that. There's different ways you can approach it. Now, granted, I'm not usually trying to get 10 million points or anything. I just don't have time for that. I cannot be, just endlessly playing this game all day, every day, like some people clearly can. So, my general strategy, though, is to just maximize the value of my time, because I generally cannot be, doing arenas for more than... Wow, I'm not even paying attention to this fight. Anyway, sorry. My general strategy is to get through as many rounds as possible in, 20, 30 minutes, because that's usually about as long as I can play before I need to do something else. So that's the way that I generally go about it. So, because with most arenas, I only do the milestones. Occasionally, I'll do more. Like, sometimes I'll make a run for the gold arena, because that one's not too difficult to get a high rank for in terms of points. But all the other arenas, I don't bother with. The only one that I might want to would be SIG, but like I said, I don't have time to grind it all day in order to get 10 million points, so I'm just not going to bother. So anyway, this will be our last round for this. These are my last couple of ranked up bots that are available right now, and we did not get a Slipstream, so that means we just did 12 rounds, and really it's 17 rounds, counting the first few rounds that are not in the video, and I got 2 Slipstream teams. So that's why, like I said, do the arenas for the arena crystals, but if you really want to get Slipstream, you want to get a lot of those elite crystals, make sure you finish the time slides, the showcases, all of that stuff. That's a much better use of your time. You will get some of the shards just by completing the milestones in the arenas anyway, so you don't need to bother about grinding these arenas like crazy, because those Slipstream teams are rare and they're not going to give you a ton of points anyway. So that would be my recommendation, but like I said, I do think it's a good idea to grind these arenas some. Just because we do have Fog of War coming, and you're going to want as much Energon as you can get. And I think I did say this in a previous video, but remember, you're averaging 200 essence per class per run if you're grinding for T4C. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be a little bit less, but roughly 200 essence per class per run is average. So you're having to usually run it 40 to 50 times to get a full T4C spark if you're starting from 0 shards. So it's a lot of grinding. You need to be mindful of that. And it's only a week long, so you need to make sure you have time set aside. Ideally, at least a couple thousand Energon. If you want to make sure you can get at least 1 full spark, maybe even 2. So anyway, just to kind of recap, Fog of War next week, save your Energon, save your crystals for the crystal opening event. Open them all after next Thursday. Don't open your crystals before. And good luck in Fog of War. So anyway, hope this has been informative and helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will speak again soon.